Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Venus and it has been quite a while. Let's catch up. So in this video, I want to do a really quick life update, nothing major. Also want to talk about Old School April because I had a fantastic time and I never got to do any wrap-ups or anything for that. And then because it has been almost 3 months since I posted a video, I've been reading a ton. And instead of doing a 25 book wrap-up, I decided to just do the Mid-Year Freakout tag because it's gonna answer a lot of the questions and talk about some of the books that I've been reading over the last couple months. So let's start with the life update. So where have I been? First, I want to say if you have any triggers about health stuff, weight issues, or anything like that that triggers you, please go ahead and skip ahead because I am going to talk about that a little bit. Also, if you don't care about where I've been, then go ahead and skip to all the fun book stuff. For those of you that are curious, I had my labs done, just routine normal labs done back in March, and I was not happy with them. They were definitely a bit of a surprise. I am a nurse, so I know, how your body works and what you should be doing, and of course easier said than done. So it definitely prompted me to make some lifestyle changes, do some research on something that I can maintain healthy lifestyle, nutrition, lose weight for the rest of my life and maintain any weight that I lose because I've been yo-yoing for many years. So that's what I've been doing, really focusing on that. And on the flip side of that, my husband and I both have parents that are very sick. When you get to a point in your life, because I am older than most of the booktubers on here, but when you get to a point in your life and you see your parents suffering or going through a lot of health crises, some of which cannot be avoided, it's just normal aging. There also are some things that we can do now at any age to prevent certain things or at least prolong them. Life is so short and I'm realizing it more and more every day, and it's so important to take care of yourself. Please, whatever path you choose as far as nutrition, and just move your body. Just walk. You don't even have to do 8,000 other things. So wanted to make that short beat. So that's what I've been dealing with. It's been stressful, but I have definitely been reading because reading is Venus Escapes to Read. That's why my channel is named that, because when I get stressed or even, when I'm happy, it's just a hobby that makes me feel joy. So I always turn to that. So I have been reading tons. I just haven't been filming. Well, so we're also getting our house ready to sell. Well, my husband's doing a lot of we're painting and updating a few things to get it ready to sell. Yes, the market is absolutely horrible, but we are definitely ready to move into more of a country rural area. I want to look out my window and not see my neighbors. So we are working on that as well. So it's just been busy, just normal life stuff, but I have been reading and I miss you guys so much. I miss talking about books. I haven't even really been watching that many videos, so I'm trying to catch up. So if I was somebody who always commented on your videos in the past, if you are a fellow booktuber, please know I'm still here. If anything, I try to like as many as I can, but I am going to try to catch up on that as well. So that's it for life update stuff. The second thing I wanted to talk about, so I went back and forth with, do I want to do a spring wrap up and talk about the 20 some books that I've read in the last 3 months, and I just felt like that would just be a really long video. Also, guys, to be honest with you, I've been reading a ton, but I think I've only had 1 or 2 5-star reads so far this year. I have reread quite a few books, which are automatic 5 stars because they're rereads and things that I love, but I don't count them. So any newer books that I've been reading, including new releases, I've had a lot of 4-star. I don't want to say everything's been terrible, but a lot of 3-star, just okay, So I didn't want to make a video and most of it be mediocre reviews. So hopefully going forward, now that we're entering the second half of the year, things will, I'm hoping, get better. So we'll see. I do want to mention I did participate in the Old School April readathon held by Kelsey from Slime and Slashers. And I just have to say, I had an absolute blast. I may not have filmed during it. I didn't vlog like I wanted to because life. But I had so much fun. The books that I read Probably none of them are a new favorite, but they're definitely books that I probably would have never read, even thought about outside of this readathon. So I did have fun with that, but I had so much fun just rewatching movies with my rewatching for me, and first time with my daughter, watching things like The Breakfast Club, Aliens, and Neverending Story, and Secret of Nim, and Seven, and New Jack City. I mean, so many like old movies that I haven't watched in so long, and I had such a great time. Also, the community, Old School April's community of everyone that participated in the readathon it just blew my mind. I have never been a part of a readathon that was so inclusive, so fun, and I really participated. And I normally don't even go on Discord because it's a lot happening on Discord, all the threads, and trying to jump into conversations is just too much for my little introvert self. But I felt very welcomed on the Old School April Discord. So again, I just want to give a big shout out to Kelsey and everyone else that participated in that readathon, and I can't wait to do it again next year. So quick little just recap on that. I wanted to definitely mention that. But finally, let's talk about some books. Now let's get into the Midyear Freakout book tag. Question number 1, best book you've read so far in 2023. We're just jumping right in there, going for the throat off the first question, but it's going to be Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. This is, I think, the second book that I read this year, and I don't think I've given anything outside of rereads a 5-star except for this book. And I loved this book so much. So this is a horror book, and it centers around Abby, and she is definitely unhinged. You're inside of her head the entire time. It's so much inner monologue. I am a sucker for a good inner monologue that is also humorous. She has got a very dark mind, and she thinks some crazy things, but it was very entertaining. It is about Abby and her husband. Her mother-in-law has passed away. If you have triggers, please check trigger warnings because this definitely gets dark. Her mother-in-law has passed away, and she is now haunting her and her husband. And Abby is trying to basically save her husband, and a whole bunch of crazy things happen in this book. The ending, I was like surprised, and it was gruesome, and I am here for it. I had such a great time with this book, and I highly recommend it if you love horror. So this is my favorite book so far of 2023. Second question is best sequel that you've read so far in 2023. I have read a few sequels. I think for this one I'm going to go with Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan. I don't have a physical copy. I actually got an ARC of it. I need to buy one because I did really enjoy it. I'm loving the series. I remember when I talked about it, when I did this book in a wrap-up, I said that I almost DNF'd it. The first like 30% of it I was really struggling with. This is a fantasy book, and it is about Von Vault. He is a justice in this world, and it's a sequel. So a whole bunch of things happen in the first book, and we're picking up where the first one left off, but we're in a kind of a bit of a different setting, and it was a little slow for me in the beginning, and then as it progressed, and I'm so glad I didn't DNF it because it became phenomenal. The ending was fantastic. It finally picked up the pace with the action and the characters, and I'm loving this series so far. I cannot wait to read the third book. I actually don't know if this is going to be a trilogy. I'm assuming, but I can't wait. So that is my favorite sequel so far of 2023. Question number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. So this year I told myself I'm going to read all of the Brandon Sanderson. This is going to be the year of Brandon Sanderson. I'm going to finally finish Mistborn and start the Stormlight Archive and just read all the things. And that has not happened. I have not really read very heavy epic fantasy too much yet this year. I'm really into thrillers for some reason right now. I just want something fast-paced where my brain doesn't have to process it. But having said all of that, a book that I really can't wait to start and I'm hoping to get to soon is Tress and the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I've heard so many wonderful things about this. It's, from what I understand, I think it's kind of touches a little bit on the Cosmere world, but you can read it as a standalone and not, I don't think you have to, I don't care. I'm just gonna read it. I don't think you have to read a bunch of the other books to understand what's going on in this, but this just seems very, very whimsical, and it's gorgeous, and I am hoping to get to this at some point this year. Number 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Y'all, I am so far behind on what's coming out. I have not even looked to see what new releases are coming out the second half of the year. Honestly, I don't even know what's coming out. So I do know it's not part of the second half of the year. It is coming out next week, though. I cannot wait to read the new Riley Sager book. Had to look it up, which is called The Only One Left. I don't know what it's about. I have honestly read all of his books that he's put out so far, and I am definitely a huge fan. Yes, some of them are better than others, but honestly, I've enjoyed all of them. I don't care what this book is about. I think the cover's really cool, and I just want to go into it without knowing anything about it. So I have it pre-ordered, and that is definitely a book that I plan on reading as soon as I get it. I'm going to drop whatever I'm in the middle of because I am such a huge Riley Sager fan. So for now, that is my most anticipated book, and I have no idea what's coming out the rest of the year. I'm sorry, I'm such a horrible booktuber. I'm sorry. Question number 5, biggest disappointment. I actually have 2 for this one. Unfortunately, it is going to be, one of them is going to be Untethered Sky by Fonda Lee. She is the author of the Greenbone Saga series trilogy that I absolutely loved. It's a fantasy series. It is in my top fantasy series of all time, and I couldn't wait to read this. I actually got an ARC of it, so I don't have a copy of it, and I was incredibly bored. I gave it 3 stars just because the writing itself, it's Fonda Lee, so I thought the writing was great, but the story was definitely a me thing. I don't care about giant birds of prey and their riders. That's basically what it's about. I think they were called rucks, and I can't remember what the riders were called, or the ruck riders, I don't know. But I was so bored. This was also a short story. It's like a novella, so it was very short, and for it to be as short as it was, I struggled. I really struggled getting through that novella book. Yeah, I was just bored. I think it just wasn't for me at all. So that was a big disappointment because I couldn't wait to read something else by her. But yeah, it just wasn't for me. And then also Happy Place by Emily Henry. That's a romance book. She is one of my favorite romance authors, but honestly, the last 2 books have not been my favorites. And I think it's because when I read romance, I don't read a lot of it anymore, but when I read it, I want it to be about the 2 main characters. And in the last book, I can't even remember what it was called, it had her sister, the main character's sister was involved in it, so it's kind of a side plot of the sister relationship. And in Happy Place, in addition to the romance, there was a side plot with a bunch of friends that I just didn't care. I didn't care, I'm sorry, I didn't care about. I just wanted to focus on the romance because she's so good at writing that. But yeah, it was a disappointment for me. I think I might have gave it 3 stars. It wasn't horrible. It's not a bad book. I still read it. I still overall enjoyed it. I was disappointed with it. So that's the second disappointment for me this year. Question number 6 is biggest surprise, and for me that is going to be The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by S.A. Chakrabarti. I loved this book. It was almost 5 stars. I gave it 4.5 stars, but I was so surprised on how much I love this book because I did start this author's first book in this series, the Daevabad series, The City of Brass, which I believe was a young adult fantasy book, and in The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, it's an adult fantasy book, and I had so much fun with this book. It's about Amina Al-Sarafi. She is a pirate, and she's older. I love that she was an older character. I want to say she was at least 40 years old, and she was a single mom, and she was a pirate, like a very world-renowned pirate, and she retired to take care of her child. And then I think one of her crew members' mom, I'm sorry, it's been months since I read it, but I think one of her crew members' mom approached her because her granddaughter was missing. So she wanted Amina to go back on the open seas and save her granddaughter. So Amina gets all of the crew back together, and the side characters were fantastic. The adventures that she goes on were so much fun. The only reason I didn't give it 5 stars is because there is a lot of like folklore and historical parts of it, which were, I think she blended real stuff from her culture into it, and it was a little too much. I got a tiny bit bored. But outside of that, I thought it was a brilliant book. I loved the ending. The ending was so good. I can't wait to continue on with that series. So that was definitely a huge, pleasant surprise for me. So question number 7, favorite new author, debut or new to you? And I have 2 for this one. The first author is Richard Swan. I am not 100% sure if Justice of the Kings was his debut work or not, but he's a new author to me, and I'm loving. I've read both Justice of the Kings and Tyranny of Faith. Those fantasy series I had just mentioned. Tyranny of Faith was my favorite sequel, and yeah, I'm loving his writing. I'm really enjoying it, and I can't wait to read more books by him. And the second author is Victor LaValle. He is the author of Lone Women. That is the first book that I've read by him. He does have other books out, and I definitely want to check out his backlist, but I loved Lone Women. I thought it was a great horror book. It blends together. Let me grab it. So I haven't read this in a while. It's been a couple months, so I'm going to have a very brief synopsis because I don't want to misspeak, but Lone Women by Victor LaValle was such a good book. It is about Adelaide. I think it takes place in the 1915. She is an African-American woman initially living in California, and she is dragging this trunk with something in it. You don't know what it is. This is considered a horror book, but I feel like it definitely crosses genres because it's like historical fiction and women's literature, and it's just quite a few things going on in it. I've heard mixed reviews about it, but personally I really had a great time with it because of Victor LaValle's writing. It was so engaging. I couldn't put this book down. What the heck is Adelaide carrying in this trunk that she's dragging around? It also was very interesting. In 1915, you could somehow get like a piece of land and build a house on it, or I think some of them had like huts or something. I don't know. I can't remember how it went, but in 1915, as a woman, especially as an African American woman, she had the opportunity to go to Montana and live in this house in the middle of nowhere by herself, and as long as she maintained it, and there were some stipulations to it for a certain amount of years that went along with it, but it was just very interesting historically because I didn't know much about that prior to this book. So I found that very interesting. Of course, my camera stopped recording. It's been a while, obviously. And then her just being out there by herself, and then random people start stopping by, and of course there's some racism in this, and then the mysterious trunk, and a whole bunch of other things that played out. And I thought it was a great book. I really enjoyed his writing, and like I said, I can't wait to read other books by this author. Question number 8, newest fictional crush. I think last year I skipped this question because I didn't have one, but this year, not necessarily a crush, but just a male character that I really thought was funny and sweet and endearing, and I loved reading about his character. What is his name? Wendell Bamblebee from Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and this is by Heather Fawcett. I loved his character. I thought he was cute and funny, and the way he interacted with Emily and the people in this story I thought was fantastic. So this is a cozy fantasy book that I honestly did not think that I was gonna like. How did I read this? Because I actually bought this. Did I get an art of this? I can't remember. Or maybe I borrowed it from the library. I don't remember. But I loved it so much I had to buy my own copy. I don't really like fairies, to be honest. I don't like reading about them because I just think they can just be little assholes in most of the books that I've read, but they were, some of them, in this book. It was fun. I really had a great time with this. Emily's character, she kind of reminded me a little bit of myself sometimes. She's very socially awkward, antisocial, very much an introvert. She just wants to go out and do her thing and study these fairies and put together her encyclopedia. This book takes place in, I can't remember the exact place because I think it is a real place. It's somewhere like near Norway, I think. It's very cold there, a lot of snow. I would definitely reread this in the winter and just get like cozy fantasy vibes from it. But she's trying to put together her encyclopedia, and Bamblebee? What is his name? Bamblebee is like her co-worker, and he shows up to help her, and then a whole bunch of other stuff happens, and you find out things about Bamblebee as well. And I want to give a shout out to Allie from Allie All I Do Is Read, because I saw that she got an arc of the second book, and I immediately went on NetGalley, and I was approved too, so I can't wait to read the second book because I love this one so much. So that's the answer to that question. Bamblebee. Wendell Bamblebee is my little crush, my new fictional crush. So question number 9, your newest favorite character. For this one, I'm actually going to go with Amina Al-Sarafi from Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi. I loved her character so much. I loved that she was older. I loved her sense of humor. I also loved she was just a badass, and she adored her family, but she also was obsessed with the open seas and being a pirate, and she embraced all of that, and I really love the way she was written, and I can't wait to read more of her adventures. So right now, that is definitely a favorite character for me for 2023. Question number 10, book that made you cry. I literally went through all of the books. I've read 42 books so far this year. I'm on pace to read the 80 that I projected to read, or my goal of 80 to read this year. So out of the 42 books that I've read, and I am such a crier. Literally, I will cry at a commercial. But this year, looking at all the books that I've read, I have not. When I say cry, I mean like sobbing. Like last year, there was a few books that I read that actually had me sobbing. I'm looking at you, Song of Achilles, yeah, sobbed at that book. But nothing yet so far this year. I am embarrassed to say though, yes, I read Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros, and I did tear up at the end. I teared up a little bit at the end. I did not sob, but I will say there were some tears there, so I guess that's going to be my answer. What did I think of this book? You'll have to see in my June wrap-up that I'm definitely going to film, because I'm trying to make sure I film once a week again. But it made me tear up. Sorry. Question number 11, book that made you happy. And I'm going to go back to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. I just love that book. It's just so cozy every time I think about it. It made me very happy. So out of all of the books that I read this year, that one definitely gave me all the feels, and I'm very happy that I broke down and read it, because honestly I wasn't going to. It just happened, and I'm glad that it did. Question number 12, favorite book to film adaptation that you've seen this year. I honestly don't watch a lot of television or movies, and I could not think of an answer for this, but for Old School April, I did reread and rewatch Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris, and I still love, definitely stands the test of time. I loved both the book and the remake, or the adaptation. I mean, that movie is a classic. Silence of the Lambs, it was brilliant. Sir Anthony Hopkins is epic. He is amazing in that role, really in all the movies he's in, but Hannibal Lecter, he played that character so perfectly. And yeah, I mean, it's not new, but there's the answer to that question. Question number 13, most beautiful book you've bought so far this year or received. And my answer is going to be Trust of the Emerald Sea, and that's by Brandon Sanderson. I actually did not pre-order the whole I can't think of the word for it, the whole pre-order thing for all of his books that everyone did, but I did. I'm kind of looking at them as they come out to see if I want the copy, and I was able to jump on and get this from his website. So, because I think it's gorgeous. Like the second book that came out, I'll probably just get that from just regular bookstore. But this one I just thought was so pretty. I'm not even a fan of green, but this is gorgeous. So that's my answer for that one. And the last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I'm going to assume they mean prioritize by the end of the year. So I have a couple. Definitely going to be the Riley Sager book, The Only One Left. I think that's what it's called. The Only One Left. definitely prioritizing that. Like I said, as soon as that comes out, I am dropping everything and reading that. Another book that I am absolutely so excited to read is All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Crosby. I read Razorblade Tears by him last year, and I thought it was phenomenal. And I'm really looking forward to reading this. I'm almost like saving it. I'm definitely going to read it this summer. Just when I'm in the mood to just be blown away, because I know this is going to be a fantastic book. I just love his writing so much. So this is definitely one that I need to read by the end of the year. Fantasy books that I want to make sure that I prioritize for the rest of this year is going to be The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. And I did read the second one, and I want to finally finish this trilogy. This is my first time reading them. I've seen the movies a million times. One of my favorite movie series of all time, and I'm enjoying it. I'm not loving the books as much as I love The Hobbit. They're definitely a lot more, I don't know what it is. It's just right now. I think on reread I'll probably appreciate them a lot more, but anyway, this is a priority. I want to make sure that I finish the Fellowship, the Lord of the Rings trilogy for the first time. So, priority. Then I have started Red Country by Joe Abercrombie. He is one of my top favorite fantasy authors, and I'm making my way through all of the standalones. This is the last one before I can get into, I think the second trilogy is The Age of Madness in the First Law world, and I'm loving all of them so far. Some a little bit more than others, but honestly I think I've given all of the books between 4 and 5 stars, so I can't wait to finally get to this one. I think I got like 5 pages into this so far, but this is a book that I need to read before the end of the year. Those are all of the questions for the Mid-Year Freakout book tag, and yeah, it's good to be back. Wow, my first video in so long. I definitely stumbled my way through that, but I had a great time as always. If you are new here, what a great time to join. Please hit that like and subscribe button, and for those of you that are returning, thank you for still hanging out with me. I always, like I say all the time, I truly do appreciate it. I can't wait to start filming videos on a regular basis again. I'm hoping at least once a week, if not every other week. We'll see. I'm hoping. That's the plan. I have not made a TBR since April. So May and June, I just completely 100% was mood reading. I would just look at my shelves and pick something, or the library or Libby, and just pick something that I felt like reading. I am going to do a TBR for July because I want to participate in Summerween, of course. I want to participate in Summerween and make sure I get some of these priorities, starting to get them knocked off my list. But that's all I've got for today, you guys. Thank you again, as always. I appreciate you, and I will see you again soon. See ya.